Welcome to Fated, a podcast brought to you by Magella and Carly, two romantically obsessed readers who believe that great books must include declarations of undying love and deep thrusts of desire. Diving into the spicy, smutty fantasy genre, we are here for both the rattling of stars and headboards, and our podcast starts with the worlds of SJM, but delves into other realms. Did we mention that washboard abs and wands of all kinds are welcome in this inclusive and magically charged space? No topic is off limits, and no one is forced to have only one favourite heroine. Welcome to Fated, where we are unabashedly and wholeheartedly hot and heavy for spicy fantasy fiction. It's time to sit down and smut up. Warning, spoilers ahead.
Right. Hello and welcome to Fated the podcast. I'm Carly.
And I'm Magella, and we are up to episode 20. And we are going to dive into a little bit of a TikTok drama that has happened very recently, where an author talked about how anyone who left a 3-star review, and essentially anything less than that, was a swear word ahead, was an asshole. And it has caused like a ruckus online with authors and readers coming out in force to talk about if this is a valid point, if she is in fact the asshole, or like what is the etiquette, I guess, of the reviews. And then Carly and I also wanted to take it a little bit further and talk about what we actually think about reviews in general. Are they helpful? Do they hinder the reader experience? Do they push you towards books that you probably shouldn't have read? Do they, invite you to start reading something that you would have overlooked? So I guess it's the pros and cons of reviews in our eyes, but it was kicked off by this review debacle that's happened on TikTok. But before we dive in, I do want to hear what Carly is reading.
Yes. Okay. So I'm still doing the tandem read. Be prepared for the next few episodes for me to be still saying I'm still in it. Really enjoying it. However, I have a confession. The other day I sat down to read and I just was not in the mood or headspace to go into something really heavy and deep. And so I knew this would happen. I picked up this one that I had from the library, which is Happy Place by Emily Henry. And I knew once I opened the front cover that I wouldn't stop. And now I'm like nearly finished that. And because I just devour Emily Henry books like lollies. They're just so good and so easy to read and so fun. So I'm reading that as well. But I promise, guys, I will get this done. I will get this done. It's only pressure I'm putting on myself.
That's right. I don't think you need to apologize to anyone else. Everyone else is in their own reading journey and probably understanding the palate cleanser. I mean, a double read is also a big effort. Like you've got a foot in two different worlds with two different plot lines, with two different groups of characters, with two different sets of problems, and you've got two different connections to those people within those different worlds. So it is a lot to ask.
It is a lot. And SJM just keeps introducing even more characters. I'm just like, more? Another kingdom, another king, another court, I'm nearly at, I need my whiteboard diagram stage. But it is, when you swap between, I always have to kind of reread the last page of the one I read previously just to get back into the flow. But it's really great. I'm enjoying it as a tandem read. So they are what I am reading at the moment. What about you? Oh, let me guess.
You can guess.
What was released yesterday at like midnight or 1 a.m. or something?
It was released the night before. So it was released on 29th of January. So at 12:03, it appeared in my Kindle. I was asleep. I checked the next morning. And so I'm reading Crescent City 3, which is 102 chapters long. And I don't have a physical copy. I'm reading it on my Kindle, which is why it arrived, which is why I could start straight away. But I have seen people pick it up, and it is hefty. It is very similar to Kingdom of Ash. It is a bookend. It is a solid collection of pages. And I feel like I mentioned this to you, but um, I think because it's just being able to have access to it has made me feel quite calm about when I read it. So I've definitely started, but I haven't read until 2 a.m. each night. I have like picked it up here and there. And the story is awesome and I'm like engrossed, but I don't feel this type of frenetic, obsessive need to read it, which is
Yeah.
actually a really nice feeling. And I actually would prefer to read it on the weekend uninterrupted rather than trying to grab these like 10 minutes here, which is how I have read other books that I've been desperately waiting for. I would read them in the car, while I was waiting to pick someone up, or I would, I'd be like, I'll just read it for 15 minutes over lunch, or in between this client session, I will take 4 minutes. I would just be like, I have to get into it.
Yeah. It was so fun being, even though I'm not there yet, I'm not in that series yet. It was so fun being swept up in other people's hype about it and seeing people like taking annual leave days off work to just read all day as soon as it had arrived and being very upset if it hadn't arrived. And that again, I was just blown away by the phenomenon, the power of that movement of SJM fans. It's really cool. And you see that Sarah went and visited some people, some book clubs and some bookshops and stuff on the night of release. Like so fun to see that. It was like New Year's kind of excitement and outfits and all the things going on. And so that was really cool. I'm glad you've got it, and I'm excited to read it at some point in 2024.
Yes. And I do think that, especially after, if you go straight in after Throne of Glass, it does feel like, I think for some people, because it obviously with the release of the third installment, people talk about how hard it is to read and how dense it is and how much more complicated the world building is. But I think if you, especially coming off a tandem read and then Kingdom of Ash, which is what I kind of said to you before, is that I actually feel like I came in so broken from Kingdom of Ash, and not in, like, no spoilers, not necessarily in a good or bad way, just like
Yep.
it was a big experience. Um, and then I came into this, so I think that I was almost like a little bit sort of, I don't want to say numb, but it's almost like you become like resilient and hardened to the to anything uncomfortable. Like, so I was just like, yeah, whatever. Like, so it's a little bit more complicated. Like, this is nothing. I've just gone through this experience with that character. Oh my God, this is, walk in the park. Just how sometimes you can't pick up a book and get into it. I wonder how much of that is influenced by the book that you had just read.
Talked about this in the
Um,
last episode of that happened to me between Queen of Shadows from the Throne of Glass series, and I tried to jump across to Powerless, and I had that little kind of moment between those books because they were just really different worlds and different characters, and I was still very much and still am in the midst of Throne of Glass. So totally agree. So that's what you're reading at the moment. That's the focus. We're getting Crescent City 3. What is it? House of Shadow and Flame. Is that it?
Flame and Shadow? I think it's
Flame
Flame
and
and
Shadow.
Shadow first. Flame first. Yeah. You got the two. Yeah, you got the elements right.
Oh my gosh. They get all confusing in my brain. Cool. Let's dive into this conversation about the reviews. So, do you want to explain what has happened or what we've seen that's instigated this kind of conversation? Because it's a really interesting conversation, and I, as always, can see many different angles to look at this from.
Yes.
But what has erupted in the last little bit? I mean, this is a conversation that kind of erupts every now and then, doesn't it, on TikTok? But currently,
I
what's going on?
Yes, I think there's definitely always certain themes that come through on Book Talk regardless. But I think sometimes someone presents it in a way that is so either triggering or um, so like represents the collective in that moment that it really cuts through. This one is a triggering, not a people aren't coming together. I mean, they're coming together in their unanimous responses to it, really. But the actual person who posted this video is an author. And ironically, her handle, which she may have changed by now, is New York Times bestseller. NYT bestseller is her. She is not a New York Times bestseller yet, but that is her aspirational title.
Yeah.
And she put a video up saying, if you give a book a 3-star review or less, you're an asshole. I think the nuance was that if you didn't love it or you just thought it was okay, giving it 3 stars is offensive. If you gave it a 1 star, it's almost like that's fine because you hated the book. But it's this middle of the road review and her justification was that it just putting a book out is a big deal. It's a lot of work. It's a lot of effort. It is something that typically a lot of the reviewers haven't done. They're readers often, not authors. And she was just saying, like, you're the problem, but you're hurting authors. You're creating this industry where people won't want to be authors because they put in all this work and they write a book, they edit it, they have to market it. And there is no disputing that. The actual process of publishing a book is big. It's a
admirable.
very exactly, but that is not what reviews are for. A review is not a participation award. It's not like here's a review to show that you put out a book. It's more like this is my impression of your book, and I think that it is obviously very subjective. So it is one person's opinion on that book, and if we start to encroach on what we're allowed to say, where does that stop? I guess is the question.
Yeah. So because I had to go back and kind of try and find that original video because it's since been taken down, and then people, gosh, nothing can really ever be deleted from the internet, can it? It's a little bit scary. But other people have obviously screen recorded it, and so I found the original, and I can see her point of view, right? Like, this is me again. I'm like, okay, let me put myself in that person's shoes. I can see her point of view from the author's perspective. I can see why she was reacting in that way. And then, of course, I went and listened to some more commentary and other people's responses to that. And I was like, yeah, I can see their point of view too. And I guess what came back for me, like I just wrote it in my notes when I was listening to all this, was like, are reviews helpful at all? Who are they helpful to? Because firstly, and we'll get into this a little bit more, reviews, in my opinion, you can disagree with me if you like, Magella, but my opinion is reviews are for readers, not for authors. Authors, in my opinion, shouldn't really be reading. I don't think they should be reading the reviews. I think they should just be like, this is my craft, this is my art. I've done this, I've created this, I've published this, there it is, out into the world, on to the next project kind of thing. And the reviews, I feel, are more for the reader experience. But that said, you and I have had conversations about whether it helps us or not anyway to read reviews. Like, do we avoid books that are only getting 1, 2, 3? Do we? Or do we? Like, I'm personally not that influenced by reviews because I just know how subjective they are. So my overarching question to all of this sort of hullabaloo on TikTok was like, gosh, are reviews even helpful to anyone at all? What do you think about that? Like, how do you feel about reviews? How do you read them, understand them, feel into them, follow them, use them? Because I don't really look at them at all.
It's a very interesting question. I think that there is I see the validity of saying an author should put their work out and not be taking on what other people are saying. But as someone who writes and creates things, there is you don't want to put it out into a void. You want people to read your words and have a response to it. Ideally a good response to be like, this is amazing. But
well, only 4 stars or 5 stars, please. That's what she was essentially saying.
That's right. Yes. But I also think that, so I think that there is this think that you do want to have a connection between the work and the person who's consuming it. You want to
Yeah.
know what that's like. Did it land? Did it impact them? What do they feel and think about it? I do think it is quite hard if you don't have a strong sense of belief in your work and your confidence isn't solid, and your identity is attached to the response from other people. I think that's where it becomes really that's when you shouldn't read, because you may change your work or adjust what you were going to do or stop putting out your work because of the response. um, so as someone who creates, I definitely feel like I love getting a response. Like, I want people to feel my words,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to know that they're feeling my words.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess I wouldn't want to read 1 or 2 star reviews unless they were very creative, unless they were like, this is the worst thing I've ever read in it, but they did it in such a way that I really felt like they were passionate and committed to that point of view, and they did it with like this kind of sense of integrity and pureness. Like, it wasn't, so I don't know if that's even possible, but that's how I feel from the creator's side of things. From
Yeah.
a reader's side of things, did you want to add something to that?
I was just going to say, I wonder if you can get that elsewhere as an author. I wonder if you can get that connection to your community, to your audience, to how the vibe is once they receive your work elsewhere than a forum like Goodreads or Amazon reviews. That was all I was going to say, because I have seen some authors say that, yeah, they've just, for their own mental health and for the integrity of their work, they don't read reviews at all. I've seen some say they don't want to be tagged ever in reviews. I've seen some say they'll only read the 4 or 5 star ones because they've found that reading the 1, 2s, and 3s just, yeah, not helpful at all and really puts them into a spiral. So I just wonder if you as an author could get that connection and that feedback elsewhere than just, yeah, going and actually looking in those sort of 3-star review sections on Goodreads and Amazon.
Oh, definitely. I think that would be, but I think that also you have to have the awareness to know that about yourself, and the inclination to go seek it elsewhere, like to set up a book club where you know that the people who are coming loved the book, or you create events where people have to pay to come and see you, so they're invested because they're outlaying money to see
Yeah.
you or something.
Tricky.
There would
It's a
definitely
tricky
be
one.
ways, for
It's so
sure.
tricky. Because you don't want to create an echo chamber of people that just love you. Of course, you do want constructive feedback. But I spent a little bit of time this morning going through Goodreads 1 and 2 star reviews, and some of them are really brutal and really go for the jugular and go for the person, the author, and the individual. And I'm like, oh, we've got a lot of unself-aware people out there, also just like dumping their immediate thoughts, feelings into these review pages. And I was like, whoa, that would be really hard to read as an author. But yeah. But what about your reader experience?
Yes, I do think when it gets really personal, that would be I feel like you're reviewing the work, you're not reviewing the author and what they had for breakfast, and like
Yeah.
how they live their life. It's the art.
Even, their
So that's a
political,
whole
some
nother.
of them were going after their political beliefs and their religious beliefs. And I'm like, whoa, 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 whoa. Are we going too far with some of these reviews, guys? And is this review space for some
Yes,
people
it is.
just this like space to be really vile? Yeah.
Yes, and also I guess there is a sense of that satisfaction if you're not feeling good yourself, if you're angry and upset and sad. It's like, that's why bullying happens. You bully because you yourself are not feeling
Yeah.
good. So you have to get that out, and you pick on others, which is essentially what bad reviews are when they turn personal. I think when you're really, I think you can say, look, you could write a 1 star review that was still very compassionate, I think.
Yes. I've got a few up that at the end I want to read out that were actually really hilarious. Like there's some really funny 1, 2, 3 star reviews when you go on there. Yes. Okay, what about the reader experience? So you as a reader, do you read reviews before you read the book? Are you influenced and impacted by a book that's got a lot of 3-star reviews or not? Will you still read it?
I feel like I look to written reviews probably last as a way to decide on a book. I would go off a, a cover and the back of a book if I could actually touch the book. I would probably go off what a friend had recommended as my top thing
Mm-hmm.
because I feel like they would know me, especially if they know my reading preferences. I feel like if they said to me, like if you said to me, as you did with the Nixia series, you have to read this. It's so good. And I didn't love it when I first began it. And then I knew that you had loved it and you were so sure that I would love it that I picked it up a second time to try again and then loved it. But if I had just gone off a review and then not loved it the first time, I probably would have been like, well, maybe that review was wrong.
Yeah.
Um, so I feel like in terms of a descending order of how important reviews are to me as a reader, the written ones are probably down the bottom. Like even someone talking on TikTok, I guess that is the same as a review, but when someone is animating their words and I can see them and I feel like I can connect to their energy, that
Mm.
influences me more than a collection of words on a page. I do have to say though, if I've never heard of the author or the series, I do feel swayed by the amount of reviews it has on Amazon. So if I go to, because I read a lot on Kindle, if I go somewhere and there's 10 reviews versus if there's 2,000 reviews and, out of the 2,000, it's at a 4.5, I'll be like, that's a lot of people who gave this a high rating. And that would definitely influence me if I didn't know anything about them to the point where almost like if I just skimmed the plot and went, yep, vampires, fairies, sex scenes, familiar tropes, whatever, I'd be like, yeah, yeah, look at all these people. I'm doing it. Whereas if there was 5 reviews for the same book with the same details,
Mm.
I'd be like, it wouldn't have the same pull, which I
And
think.
this is what this author's saying, right? Is that the 3-star really, really impacts the algorithm on Amazon and the sale. So there was a few authors as well that was sort of backing up a bit of what she said in a few videos that I watched. They're like, you don't realize that like a 3.5 and a 3 has such a different, really profound impact on whether that book will be pushed up the algorithm, up the searchability, also impacts on sales a lot because of the psychology of people like you and I who do look at, well, how many 3 stars has it got? How many 4 stars has it got? So I think there's a lot of nuance there from the back end that maybe some people don't realize as an author, as a seller, when you're marketing, when you're trying to be seen, when you're trying to get your book out there as well. Because I didn't realize actually I listened to the impact that has, giving it a 3 or a 3.5 or a 4, because it does sit in the middle range, and apparently Amazon views a 3-star as a negative. It's really not great. Whereas I'm like, actually, I've thought a lot of books are 3 stars for me, and I've really liked them. They just haven't been exceptional or like epic. But 3 to me is really solid. But to Amazon, that's seen as a negative.
I do feel it's interesting about your perspective, like your perception of a 3, because in my mind, I just think if it's a good book, it's a 4 and above. Like if it's not, if I didn't like a 3 is nothing. I don't think I would ever rate a book a 3. I would be a 1 or a 2 or an above 4. Like it has to. It's quite a like. There's not many books where I think that was a like. I do think a 3 feels like a meh. Like it feels like a
So
meh book. Like
I have
I
a
barely
solution.
finished
Let's
it.
just let's just get rid of it. Let's just do 1 to 4. 1, 2 is not great, and, and 3, 4 is great. Like it's almost we've got this stupid little 3 number in the middle that's really hurting a lot of people. And also, I do feel like a 3 is a bit of a tricky one as well, but to me it's a solid. Again, what are we proving? It's subjective. It's so subjective. Everyone's ratings are so different, and what they base their ratings on is so different. So would I go ahead and call people assholes for rating a 3? No, but I also, I can understand the perspective of why people do put 3 and why authors probably really, really hate a 3. I get it now.
So I think the video in at the very least has stirred up some awareness about the impact of reviews and how important they can be to an author. And obviously, as a reader, I want as many authors to keep publishing books so that I have this endless supply of stories to read. But in saying that, I do feel like if it's sitting at a 3, maybe it's because it just wasn't good and interesting the way we view the stars.
Like it's not these are the ratings and these are the feelings that you had about the book. Like it's not concrete to go, oh yes, that was me, I'm a 4 or I'm a 2. It's everyone coming in with their own perspective, own lens. As you've talked about, like the timing of the book in between other books, like where they're at in their life, where they're at in their cycle, what they expected of the book. So a lot of the reviews that I was looking at this morning on Goodreads, it was like, I expected this and it disappointed me. Is that the author's fault that you went in thinking it was going to be this and it was this, and then you've given it a 2 or a 3 because of that? It's just, you could go round and round in circles with it because it's so unique to the individual. And I think, I know that this is why I don't like to rate books and give it certain stars. I love reviewing books in that, like, how did I find it? What did I feel? Did I enjoy it? But I want to keep it really in that subjective space because I just can't with clear conscience say, well, this is a 3-star book, because it's not. That's just how I feel about it. So that's why we don't do that on this show as well, on this podcast, is we don't give our books ratings as such, right? Do you actually write reviews? Do you go into Goodreads after not Goodreads, where have you been hanging out? Wherever you hang out?
It's so ironic, really, because for much of my life, I have been a reviewer in real life of shows and of food and restaurants. So I'm a journalist, and I actually have been going to gigs and the opera and the ballet and writing reviews. We don't, in that space, there's no star review or a number, but it is still my opinion on that. And obviously, I very rarely find negative things to say. It's like I feel grateful that I get to experience it. I feel thankful that that we live in a world where there's all these people who are telling stories and embodying different perspectives and experiences, and then translating that into movement or song or different forms of expression. So I have written probably thousands of reviews actually in the last 20 years. Have I written a book review? Never, not once. Not a single time. I don't know if that's because I feel like words are the most sacred art form to me because I write, and I feel, how dare I cast judgment on another author? I might think it, and obviously we talk about it, but I also, especially in the age of influencers, a lot of opinions are now sponsored. They're influenced by cash or status or free product. And so there's this, especially back in the day when I first started, there was this assumption that the most powerful review is the one that is truthful and not beholden to catering to any particular party.
I think that's what it comes back to as well. Like, be kind, be aware that there is a human on the other side of whatever you're typing or creating a video review around. Like there is someone on the other side of that has toiled and created something. But again, the purists would be like, no, these authors need to know how to improve, what needs to be improved, so that they can get better at their craft. And so we're going to tell them, like, point blank, black and white, here it is. This was bad. This was good. There's people out there like that. And they would look at us, Magella, and say, you are such little fence sitting, people pleasing, airy fairy, wafty reviewers. But that's who I am. I'm just constantly think someone might be reading this that has created this, and how do I want to share my feelings about this with them in a way that's going to be maybe constructive and helpful, rather than crush their soul into a million little pieces.
And also, the worst outcome of this for us or for anyone is we buy a book and we don't like it. Like, right. Max, it's like a $30 bad investment. For Kindle, it's usually like 6 to 10. And it's just, so I think, but there is something I feel that really triggers people is when it feels deceptive. Like, I definitely feel that I have been TikTok influenced by someone going, this book is amazing. And then I have bought said book and just been like, not often, but it has happened a couple of times. And I'm like, that's on me, because I didn't even read the synopsis of the plot or anything. Yes. I just was like, this person loves this book, I'm going to try it. Like, if that person had been like, I genuinely believe that this is the best book you will read this year, and believe it, great, fine, love your commitment. We disagree. I thought it was terrible. Totally. But when someone is like, I am being paid by this publisher, that's when I feel the deception energy in a review is what I think works against us all. Otherwise it should be celebrated that we're all unabashedly sharing our opinions and being like, that was a 1 star. Look, I am premenstrual. I've had a bad day at work. And also I was really invested in my mind that character was going to end up with this character. And when the author changed that, got to say, bit pissed. But like, that is my opinion of it. And I'm not being influenced by anything or anyone. And I'm being straight up about how I feel. And maybe in a month I might read it again and be like, look, actually was a really great plot twist, and now that I'm ovulating and I've had some coffee, great book. You know what I mean? Like, it's almost like people should have like little warnings or explanations down the bottom being like, I wrote this in my luteal phase. I wrote this when I was withdrawing from sugar. I wrote this, after a breakup. Great. Okay, so she's coming in. I get it now. She's coming in from this angle.
Yeah, this is the thing. We've all got different
I understand.
Lenses. Yes, all different lenses. And it's going to be interesting, because I'm hoping this year that we will maybe get sent some books to read, and that's going to be an interesting space for us, because I think, what if we get sent books to review when we don't really like them, and then we've said we'll review them? I've just recently signed up for NetGalley to be able to get advanced reader copies, and I'm like, okay, how do I feel about reading and reviewing? I don't know. I'm just going to try to go forward with a good heart, be kind, be as constructive as possible when they want feedback, and kind of work myself through that. But that's an interesting space, as you say, with influencers and people being paid and sent free stuff, and it gets murky. It gets murky. I mean, I was thinking about, like, have we always had these online spaces to review books? No. How did authors know that their books were doing well out there? By sales, people walking into bookshops and purchasing books. But now, it's just
sending them letters,
Yes. Remember those things? Letters, right? Fan mail. Meeting them at, probably book signings and things like that. So it's an interesting space for authors to, I think, walk through as well, because, authors are all over TikTok. they're not, I would say a lot of authors probably aren't hanging out on Goodreads because that's where readers hang out, but they are on TikTok, they are on Instagram. They're going to have things come up about their own work, and that must be at times really activating. And so I wonder for this author who did this ranty, I felt like it was a real like off the cuff reactive kind of video. I just wonder what else is going on for her, in her life. And I don't know. I don't think she's any less valid, or she shouldn't have shared that. TikTok is that place that people get on and react all the bloody time. But it has certainly created some interesting thoughts for me. And I was thinking about, I used to actually rate, or I still sometimes do rate my books on Goodreads, but I actually do that for me. I realized the other day, I was like, oh my gosh, people see what I rate them. I didn't kind of make that connection. I usually go, oh yeah, that one. So I remember that was a great book and I loved it. I'd make that a 5 or a 4. And I've done some 3s, and now I'm like, oh God, is that impacting on that reader's life? Because it shouldn't, because it's my personal experience of that book. So I might be going back and doing a bit of editing on Goodreads because I feel bad. I feel bad.
I love that idea of, which we kind of just spoke about, was prefacing. And I think that that's what I will do going forward with books, is be like, I am currently in a stage of loving this genre, and I have just had a coffee and I'm well rested and I am loving life. This is my review of this book, like just to be like, or like, like I have waited for this book for a long time and I am not going to be a good judge of whether this is written well or not. I just want to know the love story of those 2 main characters and get me to those open door sex scenes.
Yeah.
FYI. Like that's what my reviews will say before I go into the review. That's so right.
On that
basically
note,
just skipping through to the smut.
Pretty much. Yeah, I think it should be like a template.
Not in this book.
Like a template. Like, where are you at in your cycle? What's just happened in the last 24 hours? How is your sleep? How are your relationships going? What was your expectation of the book? And then you may write a review. So I thought on that note, this morning I was like, I really want to go and read some funny 1-star reviews, not awful ones. I'm not into that, but can I share a few with you?
Yes, definitely.
Right, when I've gone to Goodreads, and I'm not going to say what book it is, but it's a very, very, very famous book that both Magella and I absolutely love. That's going to give you an idea. And I was like, this is hilarious. So, like, perspective, 46% of people have given this a 5-star, which is, in this case, 1,031,000 people. And 1% have given it a 1-star. So, yeah. All right, ready? These are the 1 stars. It just says, fuck no. That's the first one. If you liked this, good for you, but oh my God, I hated it so much. That's the whole review. What the hell, no? If I could erase one book from this world, this would be it. Sorry, not sorry. Favorite line.
I feel like these are very short.
There's a few really, really long ones, but I'm just reading some funny ones. My favorite line in this book sums up my reading experience. My bowels turned watery. I couldn't help it.
That is such a triggering line on TikTok. People are always talking about how often this author says that line. They're like, what the fuck? Like describe it in another way. Like, why are my bowels watery? It's so funny. I never even noticed that was one of her lines. And now I'm just like,
oh my God. This one says, my hatred for this book keeps growing every day. I feel personally betrayed by this book. One of them said, reading this book, I would rather light myself on fire. Like, some people are really passionate about how much they hate this particular book. And then, let me look up another one because these are funny.
There's an account I follow on TikTok that just posts 1-star reviews of really well-known books. I do feel like it's like the sassiest comments come out in the 1-star that just, because it's people that are so opinionated. I think to give a 1-star, you have to have a very like strong reaction to things. Otherwise you'd be like, it's a 2, it's a 3. But the 1-star people are the ones that are incensed that they have lost seconds, minutes, days, months of their life to this. It's just, it becomes really personal. It's just like, that book, I hate that. It's like this, how dare you do this to me? It's
personal
very
attack. Yeah, so this is another one that's really TikTok famous at the moment. Only 1% have given it 1 star. So we look at it in perspective. But things like, I've read fiction written by 12-year-olds with better plot than this. Disappointing. I hate Booktok. There's a lot of that. Booktok lied to me. Why did I buy this off Booktok?
You need to like prefer it. Like, if you know who you're reading the review of, like, there's definitely people on TikTok that I know are more academic. They're more literary driven. They are looking for writing devices and sentence construction and to be immersed in the experience in a certain way. And I think that those people, I don't watch their reviews because I'm just like, I don't care about that as much. Like, it just, if it makes me feel something or takes me on a ride, I'm in. Whereas it's almost like they see a badly constructed sentence and it's like a personal affront, and then they can't get into the world. They can't go along on the ride because they're just like, this author is offending me. Like, it is offending my, like, brain. And it just feels like, are they missing out? Are they missing out? Are they closing themselves off because their standard for writing is too high?
Maybe. Or maybe our standards are just too low. Who knows? It's, again, subjective.
I definitely don't think our standards are too low. I mean, I'm having too much fun to care, but...
This one's 1 star. I would find it more enjoyable to pull out my hair one by one than finish this book. It's just like, wow. But, like, what goes on in your brain to have to get online, log in, and write that? Like, it's just... let it go. Put it down. Sell it on Facebook Marketplace. Gift it to a friend that you don't really like anymore. Like, it's okay. Move along. Anyway, there are some funny ones. Like, just don't attack the person, and I'm fine with your 1 stars. But it is interesting. I think, again, just 1 star on Goodreads. Obviously, 3 stars on Goodreads is different to putting it in a forum that goes by algorithm like Amazon and impacts sales and stuff. That was an interesting angle that I hadn't thought of. In this big hullabaloo drama unfolding online at the moment. So we'll see. We'll see what people think of our discussion about it.
Yes.
Don't come for us.
That's right. And we'd love to know what you think about reviews. That's right. Tell us what you think. Do you love reviews? Do you use reviews? Do you not look at reviews? We'll pop a poll down. We'll put it up on our stories. It's interesting because obviously the more we talk about books, the more we realize our opinions can differ. The way people read is unique to them. The way people respond to books and characters, it's such a varied landscape that we're walking through, which is what makes it so appealing. So we want to hear from you. Tell us.
Absolutely. Very interesting. Okay. Well, there you go. There's our review of the Booktok drama. Done. All right. I will be talking to you soon.
Awesome. Yes. Can't wait. Next episode up soon. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you so much for listening. We hope that you felt like you were eavesdropping on a conversation that you have been dying to have with someone to discuss all the tiny details and possible plot twists of the books that you've recently read. Perhaps you don't have someone to chat to after you finish one of those epic books, so please give the show a follow and we would be honoured to be your book-obsessed friends. But mostly though, we hope it was fun, it gave you a giggle, it made you gasp or encouraged you to pick up a different author. Please share it with someone who you think would also love it, and drop us a review, letting us know what you loved and what you want to hear from us in the future. We will be back with another episode soon. Happy reading.